Spartan Chemical has been providing solutions for a clean, healthy, and safe workplace since 1956. In order to assist you in maintaining a safe workplace, we have developed the CleanCheck Safety Module. The CleanCheck training system provides this safety training presentation, allowing you to see and hear the information, and then reinforces it on the job with your laminated CleanCheck safety training cards. Workplace safety is regulated by the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, better known as Osha. This is the government agency that ensures that you have a safe place to work. We must be diligent, as not all hazards are easy to spot as the one in the picture. Some jobs may appear to be more dangerous or more critical than others. But they all are very important, and it is important to remain safe in our workplace. The OSHA Hazard Communication Standard, or Hazcom, ensures the worker's right to know not only the identities but the hazards of the chemicals they work with and around under normal conditions of use, and in reasonably foreseeable emergencies. In an effort to reduce workplace injuries, OSHA has modified the standard to incorporate the globally harmonized system of classification and labeling of chemicals, or GHS. It includes 1. Written Hazard Communication Program. 2. Must have an inventory of chemicals. 3. Must have safety data sheets. 4. Must have properly labeled chemical containers. And 5. Must have effective training of chemical hazards. The objectives of the GHS Incorporated Hazcom program today are to first, make you aware of the hazards within the chemicals you are working with or around. This includes not only what the potential health hazards are in the products, but also how to detect the presence or release of this hazard in the work area. The second Hazcom objective is to teach you safe methods of handling the products you are working around. Remember, while a product may be hazardous, with the use of proper safety equipment and procedures, the product should become safe for you to use. Finally, a key objective is to inform you of your company's written hazard communication program. This includes understanding the proper product labeling requirements, along with your related responsibilities. Additionally, your Hazcom program should help you to identify not only the location of the safety data sheets in your work area, the GHS modifications makes finding the needed information consistent across all chemical products in your workplace. The components of your hazard communication program include 1. A written Hazcom program. 2. Safety data sheets. 3. Proper chemical labeling. 4. Personal protective equipment, and 5. Your training. Your company's written hazard communication program will help make you aware of the hazards you may encounter when using chemicals and how to handle them safely. It also describes what you are to do if there is an accident. Additionally, the safety information is provided on the SDS and the product labels. Safety data sheets. There are 16 sections of Spartan's GHS safety data sheets. The first section is the product and company identification. Second is hazards identification. Third, composition and information on ingredients. Fourth, first aid measures. Fifth, firefighting measures. Sixth, accidental release measures. Seventh, handling and storage. Eighth, exposure controls and personal protection. Ninth, physical and chemical properties. 10th, stability and reactivity. 11th, toxicological information. 12th, ecological information. 13th, disposal considerations. 14th, transport information. 15th, regulatory information. And 16th, other information. Let's look at the SDS closer. Section 1, Product and Company Identification. This section identifies the Spartan product name and the contact information, including both technical and emergency phone numbers and recommended uses or restrictions. Section 2, Hazards Identification. This section identifies acute toxicity by category. Each classification uses a decision tree to determine the category, and that information determines what symbols, signal words, hazard statements, precautionary statements, and other hazards not otherwise classified, if any, will be on the SDS and label. Section 3. Composition and information on ingredients. With the exception of trade secrets, this section is where the product ingredients, their concentration by weight, and their chemical identifier or CAS number are located. Section 4. First aid measures. This section describes what to do if you splash the product on you, get it in your eyes, breathe in a vapor, or ingest it. It will also describe whether immediate medical attention or special treatment is needed, and major symptoms or effects. Section 5. Firefighting measures. This section identifies what extinguishing media such as water or foam should or shouldn't be used, if there are any hazards associated with the combustion of the product, and if the firefighters will need any special protective equipment. Section 6. Accidental release measures. This section describes what you should do if the container begins to leak. It will describe whether the product should be disposed with water down the drain, captured and recycled, or handled in a different way. This section will also describe any personal precautions, protective equipment, and emergency procedures that should be used while cleaning up the spill. Section 7. Handling and storage. This section describes what precautions, if any, should be used when handling and storing the product, and if there are incompatible materials. Section 8. Exposure controls and personal protection. When reviewing the safety data sheet, this section is important for all users, as it tells you not only how much of the product you can be safely exposed to, it tells you what protective equipment and controls, if any, you need to use to make it safe to use. Section 9. Physical and chemical properties. Describes both the physical and chemical properties, including appearance, odor, and odor threshold, pH, melting or freezing point, boiling point, flash point, evaporation rate, flammability limits, upper and lower, vapor pressure and density, solubility, auto-ignition temperature, decomposition temperature, and viscosity. Section 10. Stability and reactivity. This section describes the stability of the product. What happens when you mix this product with other chemicals? Conditions to avoid, such as extreme cold or heat, and possible hazardous products that may be produced as the product decomposes. Section 11. Toxicological information. Describes the various health effects and the available data used to identify those effects, including the likely routes of exposure such as inhalation, ingestion, related symptoms, immediate and delayed exposure effects, chronic effects due to short and long-term exposure, numerical measures of toxicity, and whether or not the product is listed as a cancer-causing agent. Please note that while the regulations require the supplier to list sections 12 through 15, information listed in sections 12 through 15 of the safety data sheet is considered non-mandatory, as these sections do not directly relate to the employer-employee working relationship. Section 12. Ecological information. The information for this section covers the impact on the environment, including its impact on the water and land, how quickly the product degrades, can it build up in the environment, can it migrate, and can it create other adverse effects including impact the ozone layer. Section 13. Disposal considerations. This section describes how to safely handle any waste residue and any contaminated packaging and safely dispose of them. Section 14. Transport information. If regulated, this section contains UN number, UN name, transport hazard class, packing group, environmental hazards such as marine pollutant, yes or no, regulations around transporting in bulk, and any special precautions the transporter or handler needs to be aware of. Section 15. Regulatory information. Describes any federal, state, or international safety, health, or environmental regulations relating specifically to the product. Section 16. Other information. The final section of the SDS includes any other information including the date it was prepared or revised, as well as voluntary, non-regulated information, including HMIS and disclaimers. Under the GHS Modified OSHA Hazard Communication Program, the Spartan Chemical labels include the following components: product identifier or name, signal word or words, related hazard statements, pictograms, precautionary statements, company name, company address, and phone number. In addition, Spartan has also included the directions for use. Let's review the components of the label in detail so that we have a better understanding of what we are looking at. Each label has a product name that allows you to identify not only the product, but also provides the reference link back to the appropriate SDS. Signal word. If required, the product will use one of two words, either danger or warning. Products with the signal word danger means the hazards are potentially greater than products with the signal word warning. After the signal word, any related hazard statements will be listed, such as causes eye irritation. Symbols in the form of pictograms represent visual hazards. For OSHA standards, the pictogram is composed of a black symbol on a white background with a red border. The symbols used represent specific types of hazards. Following the hazard statements and intended to minimize risk, precautionary statements briefly describing measures that should be taken to prevent adverse effects from the hazard. One example of a precautionary statement is, use in a well-ventilated area. Also required on the label is the manufacturer's name, address, and phone number. While not required for compliance, Spartan also provides the directions for use on each label. Workplace labels must be applied to all containers by the person who transfers the chemical from the original product container into a workplace container. For example, from a gallon jug into a spray bottle, unless the product is going to be immediately used by that person. If any chemical still remains, the container must either be properly labeled or its contents must be disposed of according to product directions before leaving it behind for someone else to use. If you come across a container that contains a chemical and it is not labeled with an appropriate label, please take it to your supervisor immediately. Personal protective equipment. Products requiring the use of personal protective equipment may state that you must use certain safety equipment to include gloves, eye protection, respirators, shoes, shoe covers and boots, aprons. Please refer to the product label and the SDS for specific information on the product you are handling or using. If the product requires that you use this equipment, it is your responsibility to wear the equipment. Your employer must provide access to the proper safety equipment. Why do we do all this? The purpose is so you have a safe place to work. Remember, some jobs appear to be more dangerous or critical than others. So we must be diligent, as not all hazards are easy to spot, as the one in the picture. Thank you for taking the time to review the CleanCheck GHS Modified Hazard Communication tutorial. Your dedication and commitment are key to a safe workplace.